We've been working on changing fractions to decimals and decimals to fractions. In this chapter, we're going to start working on percents. And so we'll look at how a decimal number can be represented as a fraction and also as a percent. Since cent is 1/100th of a dollar, like 1 penny is 1 cent, then percent means how many per 100. So in a percent, 100 is your key denominator. So when you were given a fraction like 1/2, you learned how to write that as a decimal by writing it as either tenths or hundredths or thousandths. And we had to change the numerator to find out how many. So like to change 1/2 to tenths, we multiplied both by 5, and that gave us 5/10, where 5 is half of our 10, so 1/2 is 5/10. To get the 2 to change to 100, we would have had to multiply by 50, so 1 times 50 would have given us 50 hundredths, because 50 is half of 100, and for 1,000 it would be 500 thousandths. So as a decimal, 5/10 looks like this, 50 hundredths looks like this, and 50 thousandths, 500 thousandths, looks like this. Since percent means per hundred, this is the one I want to look at because it's how many per hundred, and there's 50 per hundred, so it's 50%. So all three of these are equivalent because they're all equal to 50%. 50%, 50 hundredths as a decimal, and 50 hundredths as a fraction. So remember, percent means how many out of 100. If we said we had 38 out of 100, what percent would that be? Well, 38 out of 100 is part of it's 38, the whole is 100, so it's 38 hundredths, so that means it's 38%. If we said what percent is 17 100ths, well, I've got my key denominator. Cent means 100, percent is per 100. It's 17 per 100, so it's 17%. What if I have 7/10? Percent means per 100, and this is per 10. So I've got to change it to per 100. Well, you've been doing this. To get 10 to go to 100, you multiply by 10. So 7 times 10 is 70. And 70 per 100 means 70%. Pause the video while you try to do these three. Make 3/10 be a percent, make 68 hundredths be a percent, and make 4 out of 100 be a percent. Okay, on the first one, since it's 3 out of 10 and percent means per 100, I need to get a denominator of 100. That requires multiplying this denominator by 10, so 3 times 10. 3 times 10 equals 30, so 30 per 100 equals 30%. 68 out of 100, or 68 over 100, already has my key denominator of 100, so 60 out of 100 is 68%. And 4 out of 100 is simply 4 100ths, so it's 4%. One way to change a decimal to a percent is to first write it as a fraction. So we learned how to read this number, 56 hundredths, so that's 56 over 100. And since percent is per 100, that's 56%. This decimal is read as 9/10, but percent has to be per 100. So again, I have to get my denominator multiplied by 10 to get 100. So the numerator makes 90. So this one is 90%. You've practiced graphing decimals on a number line. Well, if you find the equivalent percent, you can put a percent on the same number line, because 0 is 0%, 50 hundredths is 50%, and 1 means you have all of it, the whole pie or pizza or whatever, that's 100%. So if I wanted to put 56 hundredths on the number line, that would be 56 hundredths, or 56%. So if this is 50%, this would be 60%. So 56 would be a little bit past halfway. And 90%, of course, would be the same as my 0.9 over here, my 0.90. So this would be my 90%. Pause the video while you change these decimals to percents. First, I'll read this first one as 8 hundredths. So that's 8 over 100. It's out of 100, like percent is, so that's 8%. The next one is read 4 tenths. I need to change it to hundredths. So multiplying by 10 makes 40 hundredths, so 40%. Changing a percent to a fraction in simplest form means, first of all, writing it instead of percent, write it per hundred as a fraction. And then you know how to reduce fractions. These are both even, so we'll divide by 2. And that gives us 47 out of 50. Can't go any lower, so this is my fraction in simplest form. Pause the video and try these, writing them as fractions in simplest form. 12% would be 12 over 100. I can divide both of those by 4 and get 3/25 in simplest form. 56% is 56 over 100. They're both even, so I'll divide by 2, and that gives me 28 over 50. I can divide by 2 again and get 14 out of 25. Always make sure your final answer is in lowest terms. To write 97% as a decimal, first I write it as 97 hundredths, and then as a decimal, I've got to go tenths hundredths, because it's per hundred. It's 97 hundredths, so it's 0.97. Pause the video while you write these 2 percents as decimals. So 60% would be 60 per hundred, which is 60 hundredths, which ends in the hundredths place. I could also write it as just 0.6. And 4% would be 4 hundredths. Again, hundredths, is 2 places over. My 4 has to end there, so I put a 0 in the front.